Welcome, everyone. I'm Ash, and I'm thrilled to be here with my co-host, Kate. Today, we're diving into a topic that's a game changer for anyone who needs to speak in public. How to turn a boring speech into something entertaining, or how to sound engaging even when the topic feels dull. Whether you're giving a work presentation, a school speech, or just chatting about something dry, we've got you covered with tips to captivate your audience.
Absolutely, Ash. Hi, everyone. I'm Kate, and I'm so excited to share this with you. As English learners, you'll also pick up practical phrases, vocabulary, and confidence to sound lively in any conversation. We'll share science-backed strategies, real-life stories, and our own experiences to make your speeches sparkle. So grab a notebook, get comfy, and let's make boring topics fun.
You know, Kate, we've all sat through speeches that made us want to check our phones or take a nap. Maybe it's a report on company budgets or a lecture on tax laws. But here's the thing, a boring topic doesn't mean a boring speech. With the right techniques, you can make any subject engaging. Let's start with why boring speeches happen. Scientifically, it's about attention. Our brains are wired to focus on novelty, new, exciting things. When a speech feels monotonous, like a droning voice or repetitive facts, our brain tunes out. Psychologists call this attentional blink, where we lose focus if nothing grabs us.
That's so true, Ash. I gave a presentation once on office protocols, Yawn City. My audience was half asleep until I added a funny story. Scientists say our brains also respond to emotion. A study from the University of California found that emotional content, like humor or personal stories, boosts memory and engagement. So, if you're talking about something dry, like data analysis, weave in a story or a joke. It wakes up the audience's brain.
Love that, Kate. Let's dive into a scientific method, storytelling. Stories activate the brain's reward centers, releasing dopamine, which makes listeners feel good and stay engaged. If your topic is boring, like a technical manual, share a story about how it helped someone. I once had to present on software updates, super dry. I told a story about how the update saved my friend's project from crashing. The audience perked up. Try saying this. I can make any topic engaging with a story. What's a story you've used, Kate?
Oh, I had to talk about recycling policies at work. Snooze, right? But I shared how my nephew got excited about sorting cans and made it a family game. Suddenly, everyone was listening. Try saying, I'll share a story to make my speech fun. Storytelling works because it connects the topic to real life. Another method is humor. Even a small joke can lighten a dull topic. Research from the Journal of Applied Psychology shows humor reduces stress and increases audience connection. Ash, got a humor tip?
Totally. Humor doesn't mean stand-up comedy. A simple quip like, "This report has more numbers than my math homework," can get a laugh. I used this in a budget meeting, and it broke the ice. Try saying, I'll add a light joke to my speech. But be careful, keep humor kind and relevant. I once heard a speaker joke about taxes in a tax seminar, saying, "Taxes are like parking tickets. Nobody likes them, but we all pay." The room roared. Kate, any humor mishaps?
Oh, yes. I tried a joke about spreadsheets that was too nerdy, and it flopped. Lesson learned, know your audience. Another method is vocal variety. A monotone voice kills engagement, but varying your pitch, high for excitement, low for emphasis, keeps listeners hooked. Scientists say vocal changes stimulate the brain's auditory cortex. I practiced this for a speech on data entry, raising my pitch for key points, and people stayed engaged. Try saying, I'll use vocal variety to sound exciting. Ash, how do you use your voice?
I focus on pacing. Speaking too fast makes you sound nervous. Too slow, boring. I aim for a conversational rhythm, like I'm chatting with friends. In a talk about office safety, I slowed down to emphasize, "This rule saves lives." It grabbed attention. Try saying, I'll vary my pace to keep my audience engaged. Another tip, body language. Research shows 55% of communication is nonverbal. Standing tall, smiling, and using gestures make you engaging. Kate, any body language tricks?
Definitely, I use open gestures, like showing my palms to seem approachable. In a dull speech about compliance, I walked toward the audience and gestured to emphasize points. It woke them up. Studies from Harvard show confident postures boost audience trust. Try saying, "I'll use confident body language to shine." Ash, ever had a body language fail?
Oh yeah, I crossed my arms during a talk on inventory and my boss said I looked defensive. Now, I keep my shoulders back and smile. Another method is audience interaction. Asking questions or involving listeners keeps them alert. In a dry presentation on procedures, I asked, "Who's dealt with this issue?" Hands shot up and we had a lively discussion. Try saying, "I'll ask my audience a question." Kate, how do you involve listeners?
I love mini polls. In a speech about workplace rules, I asked, "Raise your hand if you've forgotten a deadline." Everyone laughed and engaged. Research from educational psychology shows interaction boosts retention. Another method, visual aids. A simple slide or prop can make a boring topic pop. I used a funny cartoon in a talk about regulations, and it got smiles. Try saying, "I'll use visuals to make my speech fun." Ash, any visual aid tips?
Keep them simple but bold. In a talk about sales metrics, I used a colorful graph to show trends. It made numbers exciting. Studies show visuals activate the brain's visual cortex, aiding understanding. Try saying, "I'll use a clear visual to engage my audience." Another tip, analogies. Comparing a dull topic to something relatable makes it interesting. I compared data analysis to solving a puzzle, and my audience loved it. Kate, got an analogy story?
Yes, I compared project management to cooking a recipe. Follow the steps, but add your flavor. It made a dry topic relatable. Analogies work because they simplify complex ideas, as cognitive science shows. Try saying, "I'll use an analogy to make my topic clear." Another method, positive framing. Instead of saying, "This topic is boring," say, "This topic is a chance to learn something new." I framed a speech on audits as, "This helps us grow," and it changed the vibe. Try saying, "I'll frame my topic positively." Ash, how do you stay positive?
I focus on the why. In a talk on safety protocols, I said, "These rules keep us safe so we can thrive." It inspired the audience. Positive framing, as psychologists note, boosts motivation. Another method, energy infusion. Bring enthusiasm even for dull topics. I got excited about a report by saying, "This data shows our success." The energy was contagious. Try saying, "I'll bring energy to my speech." Kate, how do you add energy?
I channel passion. In a talk about filing systems, I said, "This system saves us hours," with excitement. Studies show enthusiasm activates the brain's reward system. Another tip, short sentences. Long, complex sentences bore listeners, but short ones keep them engaged. I used "files organized," "time saved," "we win" in a speech, and it landed well. Try saying, "I'll use short sentences to sound lively." Ash, any sentence tips?
Keep them punchy. In a talk on regulations, I said, "Follow this. Stay safe, move forward." It stuck with the audience. Linguistic research shows short sentences aid comprehension. Another method, personal connection. Share a bit about yourself to make the topic relatable. In a speech about budgets, I shared, "I learned to budget as a broke student." It hooked the audience. Try saying, "I'll share a personal story." Kate, any personal connection stories?
Oh, yes. In a talk about data security, I shared how I lost my phone and panicked about my data. It made the topic real. Sharing personal stories builds rapport, as communication studies show. Another method, rhetorical questions. Asking, "Why does this matter?" grabs attention. I used, "What if we ignored this rule?" in a compliance talk, and it sparked curiosity. Try saying, "I'll use rhetorical questions to engage." Ash, Got a question story?
I asked, what if our sales doubled in a metrics talk and it got everyone thinking? Rhetorical questions, as psychologists say, activate critical thinking. Another tip, repetition for emphasis. Repeating a key phrase reinforces your message. In a safety speech, I repeated safety first, always. It stuck. Try saying, I'll repeat my key point for impact. Kate, how do you use repetition?
I love it. In a talk on teamwork, I repeated, "Together we succeed." It rallied the audience. Repetition strengthens memory, as cognitive science shows. Another method, surprise elements. A surprising fact or stat can wake up a bored audience. In a speech on policies, I said, "This rule saved a company $1 million." It grabbed attention. Try saying, "I'll use a surprising fact." Ash, any surprise stories?
I shared in a data talk, one error cost a firm $500,000. The room gasped. Surprising facts, as research shows, boost engagement. Another tip, confident delivery. Even a dull topic shines with confidence. Stand tall, smile, and speak clearly. I practiced this for a report presentation, and it made me memorable. Try saying, I'll deliver my speech with confidence. Kate, how do you stay confident?
I use positive self-talk. Before a speech on regulations, I told myself, "Kate, you've got this." It calmed my nerves. Psychologists say self-talk boosts resilience. Another method, audience focus. Tailor your speech to what the audience cares about. In a talk on procedures, I asked, "How many of you want less stress?" It connected instantly. Try saying, "I'll focus on my audience's needs." Ash, any audience focus tips?
Know their interests. In a sales talk, I tied metrics to bonuses and everyone listened. Understanding your audience, as communication studies show, increases engagement. Another tip, practice delivery. Rehearse your speech to sound natural. I practiced a budget talk in front of a mirror and it flowed smoothly. Try saying, I'll practice to sound natural. Kate, how do you rehearse?
I record myself and listen back. For a compliance speech, I noticed I rushed, so I slowed down. Practice builds fluency, as linguistic research shows. Another method, emotional hooks. Connect your topic to emotions like hope or pride. In a talk on rules, I said, "These rules make us proud of our work." It resonated. Try saying, "I'll add emotion to my speech." Ash, any emotional hook stories?
I tied a safety speech to family, saying, these rules let us go home to our loved ones. It hit home. Emotional hooks, as psychology shows, deepen connection. Another tip, clear structure. Start with a hook, explain your points, and end with a call to action. I structured a data talk this way, and it kept the audience engaged. Try saying, I'll structure my speech clearly. Kate, how do you structure talks?
I use a simple formula: hook, main points, conclusion. In a policy speech, I started with a story, explained rules, and ended with, "Let's make work better." It worked. Structure aids comprehension, as research shows. Another method, vivid language. Use descriptive words like spark, thrive, or ignite. In a talk on filing, I said, "This system sparks efficiency." It popped. Try saying, "I'll use vivid words." Ash, any vivid language tips?
Use sensory words. In a metrics talk, I said, these numbers paint our success. It made data exciting. Vivid language, as linguistic studies show, boosts engagement. Another tip, pausing for effect. A brief pause before a key point grabs attention. In a safety talk, I paused before, "This saves lives." It landed hard. Try saying, "I'll pause for impact." Kate, how do you use pauses?
I pause to let points sink in. In a teamwork speech, I paused before, "We win together." It hit home. Pauses, as communication research shows, enhance impact. Another method, enthusiastic tone. Sound excited even for dull topics. I got pumped about a filing system, saying, "This saves time." The audience caught my vibe. Try saying, "I'll sound enthusiastic." Ash, How do you keep enthusiasm high?
I think of my audience's benefit. In a budget talk, I said, "This plan boosts our growth." My excitement spread. Enthusiasm, as psychology shows, is contagious. Another tip, real-life examples. Share relatable stories to make topics engaging. In a procedures talk, I shared how a rule saved my project. It connected. Try saying, "I'll share real-life examples." Kate, any example stories?
In a compliance talk, I shared how a rule caught an error, saving my team stress. It made the topic real. Real-life examples, as storytelling research shows, build rapport. Another method? Call to action. End with a clear next step, like, "Try this tomorrow." In a policy speech, I said, "Start following this rule today." It motivated action. Try saying, "I'll end with a call to action." Ash, how do you wrap up?
I inspire action. In a data talk, I said, "Use these insights to grow." It left the audience energized. Calls to action, as motivational studies show, drive change. Let's do a Q&A. Imagine a listener asks, "Ash, how do I make a dry topic fun?" I'd say use a story or joke. In a budget talk, I shared a funny story about my broke college days. Try saying, "I'll add a fun story." Kate, your take?
I'd say use vivid language and enthusiasm. In a rules talk, I said, "This rule sparks success with energy." It worked. Try saying, "I'll sound excited about my topic." Another question, how do I avoid sounding monotonous? I'd say, vary your pitch and pace. In a compliance speech, I raised my pitch for key points, and it kept listeners hooked. Try saying, "I'll vary my voice." Ash, your thoughts?
Use pauses and gestures. In a safety talk, I paused and gestured to emphasize points. It kept the room alive. Try saying, "I'll use pauses and gestures." One more. What if I'm nervous? I'd say use positive self-talk. Before a metrics talk, I said, "Ash, you've got this." It calmed me. Try saying, "I'm confident in my speech." Kate, your advice?
Take a deep breath and power pose. Before a policy talk, I stood tall and felt ready. Try saying, "I'm ready to shine." Let's practice. Say these confidently. I'm an engaging speaker. I make boring topics fun. I'm excited to speak. Amazing work. Keep practicing daily.
Our top tip, believe in your ability to entertain. Every speech is a chance to connect and inspire. You've got this, listeners. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe for more English lessons and share in the comments what's one tip you'll try in your next speech. See you next time.
Bye for now, everyone. Keep shining.